If you're watching this video, then that means that the US government has reopened after the longest government shutdown in American history, totaling 43 days. So what's the damage? Well, for starters, 1.2 million American workers haven't been paid in 43 days. Thousands of flights have been canceled, and millions of food stamp recipients haven't seen their benefits yet for the month of November. Now that the shutdown's come to an end, a lot of these issues will self-correct. Food stamp recipients will receive their benefits, albeit be late. Federal employees will go back to work if they're not working already and will receive back pay for the last 43 days. And the Department of Transportation will begin to rescale up flights out of American airports, meaning that we could expect delays to start to diminish. But unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and rainbows because of the way that the government shutdown came to an end. What caused this shutdown was an inability for the Democrats and the Republicans to agree on an extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies that help keep the cost of healthcare low for millions of Americans. Basically, the Democrats were like, hey, in this funding bill, we want to include some expenditure on these subsidies that will ensure the healthcare premiums for millions of Americans don't go up by thousands of dollars per year. And then the Republicans were like, hey, actually, f you. Then the Democrats were like, hey, guess what? Affordable healthcare for the working class is kind of a non-negotiable for us. But then 43 days into the shutdown, 7 weak Democrats in the Senate decided it was a negotiable and conceded to the Republicans, got nothing, and although that reopened the government, it also puts affordable access to healthcare for millions of Americans on the line. Anyways, that's all for now. Make sure to follow to stay up to date with the news.
All right, well, the shutdown may be over, but the damage is already done. And the worst part is this. After 43 days, we ended up exactly where we started. A simple continuing resolution, no reforms, no progress, just weeks of pain the Democrats deliberately put on the American people. President Trump said it clearly from the Oval Office. Democrats shut down the government in an attempt to force hundreds of billions of dollars for people who came to this country illegally. Republicans never wanted the shutdown, and they voted 15 times to fund a clean bill. This little political stunt cost the country an estimated $1.5 trillion, and it forced millions of Americans to suffer for no reason. It took 8 Senate Democrats crossing the aisle just to stop the madness. And so the question is simple. For all this damage, what was the point? We're back to a continuing resolution. Democrats and Republicans still have to sit down and reform Obamacare. The shutdown didn't move the country forward at all. It hurt innocent people for political leverage. Follow for more facts and tell me below, was the shutdown worth it?
After 43 days since the United States government has been shut down, it has finally came to an end. Last night, Donald Trump just signed the government funding bill ending this government shutdown after it has caused so many people so much financial stress because they haven't been working or they were working and not getting paid. And of course, all the chaos with the traveling. And you know, of course, Donald Trump had to throw a little jab, and he said that, and I quote, "So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget about this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country." So finally, after 43 days of both sides going back and forth, we can finally move past this and take a step forward because the shutdown is over.
43 days. The longest government shutdown in American history. It's finally over. Congress pushed through a funding bill. The House vote was 222 to 209. Trump signed it the same night. But here's the real headline. Nearly 900,000 federal workers were caught in the middle. Food benefits paused, flights delayed, and the economy took an $11 billion hit. And don't get comfortable, because this deal only funds the government until January 30th. The biggest fights are still ahead. The shutdown might be over, but the stakes just increased. Follow for more updates as this unfolds.
The government shutdown is over. However, there was no clear winner in Congress. During this government shutdown, you've seen federal workers getting furloughed. You've seen aviation traffic controllers still working without getting paid. And you also seen people that 42 million people that receive SNAP benefits didn't get their benefits for the month of November. And also a lot of things did not get resolved, especially for the health insurance. Allegedly, billions and trillions are going for illegals to have health insurance. So what does that mean? A future shutdown may happen again. During this government shutdown, you've seen a lot of things. You've seen people that still went to work, still provided for their family, and you still seen a lot of people that just sat on their ass and still didn't do shit and feel like the government has to provide for every want and need for them. For those people, you better find you another backup plan, because best assured, another government shutdown may happen. My name is Tiffany. I lost 150 pounds in 2.5 years, and I also report different news topics. Tap in.
So it looks like the government shutdown is ending with Democrats essentially caving to talk about the Affordable Care Act, to vote on it down the line, with the promise that they will eventually get around to it. What that means for average Americans, like 20 to 25% of Americans who rely on the Affordable Care Act to help supplement their medical bills, are going to see their premiums and medical expenses double. I'm in a really weird place about this because even though I know that, like, tactically this is really bad for the Democrats, this is really terrible, it's hard for me to be sad or to be upset that much, because I know there were people out there really hurting because of the shutdown. There are kids now, children, hopefully, that are going to be able to eat, because the truth of it is, it's children and infants, people out there who couldn't afford food were starving, are going to starve. So I'm in a weird place about this. You know, I feel like the Democrats gave up a really good tactical position, especially after the last round of elections, and we see that the majority of Americans really see the true culprits of this as the Republicans, which they are, and Democrats had a little bit of leverage here to give it up, but it's hard for me to be upset about that because, you know, starving children and stuff. Follow Mike for more.
The longest federal shutdown in the U.S. history finally ended. And I know that it caused so much uncertainty for so many families, Michigan businesses, and communities. We should all be glad that it's finally over, but there's still a lot going on. So here's what you need to know. Earlier this week in Michigan, we made sure that folks who use SNAP could continue to buy groceries to feed themselves and their families. The airports may still feel the impact of the shutdown. We will continue to closely monitor the situation. Healthcare costs are continuing to rise, and I hate it as much as you do. And that's why I negotiated rates down for Michiganders by $250 million. But this is an issue I encourage people to raise their voices to their elected officials in the federal government. We're doing what we can in Michigan, but we need their help. Another reason we should be proud is that while the federal government was shut down, we passed a balanced, bipartisan state budget that delivered on the issues that make a real difference in people's lives. We protected access to Medicaid for millions of Michiganders. We continued feeding all 1.4 million public school students free breakfast and lunch at school. We secured the largest deal to fix the dam roads in Michigan history and continued investing in our first responders to keep communities safe. I'm proud that Michigan is leading the way and showing DC how to get things done. And that's why I wanted to say thank you to all the incredible Michigan nonprofits and community organizations who do great work year-round, but really stepped up during this shutdown to feed people and to help families get by. You're the best of Michigan, and I'm so grateful for everything you do. You make us proud to be Michiganders. You know, we can't control what the federal government does or doesn't do, but we can control what we do. So let's keep working together to help Michiganders pay the bills and put food on the table.
So now, with the government shutdown ending, we see why Donald Trump wanted so badly to keep the government closed for as long as possible. He did not want this shutdown to come to an end, no matter what he said publicly. I mean, he had to say publicly that he wanted it to end, but really he didn't. And now we see why, because as soon as this shutdown is over, we now have the Epstein saga just exploding back to life. And now we have these emails that have been released by House Democrats, and they were part of a whole bunch of documents, including thousands of emails that were turned over by Epstein's estate to Congress pursuant to a subpoena. And, you know, we're still going through all of these emails that have been released. But it's really a disaster for this guy. And what it really looks like here, which we've all suspected, is that, you know, Donald Trump played up all these conspiracy theories about a pedophile ring in which all of these politicians and rich people, and they were all involved in this, and Jeffrey Epstein was the center of it. And Donald Trump presented himself as the great champion, that he was going to release all of this information, that he was going to hold all these pedophiles accountable. And he set himself up as the hero in this story. If anything, he was part of this. He was part of this pedophile ring, this trafficking and abusing of underage girls. The question is exactly what part did he play in all this? What exactly did he do? We don't know that, but it certainly seems like he was in that world. Certainly seems he knows what was going on. You know, if these emails are to be believed. And I don't know why they wouldn't be. I mean, these are private emails between him and Ghislaine Maxwell. And some of them between Michael Wolff. So, and these were all the way back in, what, 2016? So here he is, promising all these MAGAs that he was going to blow the lid wide open and hold all of these people involved in this sex trafficking pedophile ring, hold them all accountable, prosecute them. But this is the way he sort of inoculates himself against the fact that he was part of this. He does this all the time. Exactly this kind of thing. This is his modus operandi. This is how he handles these things. And I don't know why it's surprising to anyone, but the question is, if we find out more, and if this is, you know, it gets worse for him, is it possible that this is what brings him down? Because I was just listening to a podcast, and they were talking about this, and the perpetual pessimist on the panel was saying, oh, yeah, it's not gonna matter to these MAGAs. They'll just defend him no matter what. And certainly that has been the case up till now. And I'm not saying that he's not going to end up being right. But here's what I think about all of this. And I think I'm borne out by how mad we see a lot of these MAGAs at Donald Trump right now for a whole host of reasons. But at some point, they're going to realize, see, Donald Trump is their identity, right? They have to support him. In fact, I saw one of these MAGAs today on Twitter, big name account, who said, it's Trump or Democrats. That's your choice. Take your pick. That's it. Those are the only two choices, which is ridiculous. I responded to this person, like, Donald Trump is a lame duck. He's going to be gone pretty soon. You're clinging to a sinking ship. At some point, as we get closer and closer to the end,
the government shutdown has officially ended. President Trump signed the bill last night, but what does that mean for SNAP benefits that were already given out? And when will you see that money on your cards again? Well, there's been a lot of back and forth, so let's talk about it. You may remember some states started issuing SNAP benefits over the weekend. For example, here in North Carolina, after Attorney General Jeff Jackson, along with several other states, filed a lawsuit to protect and issue full benefits, Jackson announced Friday SNAP recipients would start seeing roughly 50% of their benefits on their EBT cards that day. Now, there are 1.4 million SNAP recipients in North Carolina, including 580,000 children, but only 190,000 North Carolinians received $16 or less. Why? On the same day, the Trump administration requested a pause on the order to fully fund SNAP. The Court of Appeals denied the request, so the Trump administration took it to the Supreme Court, and a justice granted him the pause on the ruling, which paused the benefits. That's when President Trump told the USDA, which is responsible for SNAP, to immediately undo any steps taken to issue full SNAP benefits for November 2025, adding that full SNAP payments by states were unauthorized. But a U.S. district judge issued a temporary restraining order yesterday that the Trump administration cannot force states to undo benefits that they had already started giving out over the weekend. She also ordered the administration to ensure that the emergency funds for SNAP are made available to states by today. The USDA said in an email on Wednesday that the funds could be available upon the government reopening, which it now has, within 24 hours for most states. But the American Public Human Services Association agency says it could take up to a week.